Hi there. This time I will start preparing for the inside lamination. That is to sand the inside. As you saw last time, I put some glass fiber on the outer side, and that will keep the surface together. So now I can bring it outside and start sanding. Before I can access the inside, I need to release the top. The molds are still partly stuck to the top, so I have to remove them and the leftover staples. Now it's only the masking tape that holds the parts together. When I get it off, I can clean up the inside. I remove the excess glass and the masking tape to limit the outside work with the sander. When all cleanup is done, I move outside. I will use belt sander on the more flat surfaces, although the inside bend makes it difficult to work with. I have to mostly use a band bend in the front, or the right sharp edge of the sander. The metal frame and the exhaust on the left side makes it very hard to use a sander effectively. When I have sanded all the surface area I can reach with the belt sander, I will have to switch tool. A soft sanding block with a coarse 40 grit paper on it does work well, although rather labor intensive. When I have reached the end of this panel, I fetch the next. When the first sanding is done, it's time for some fairing. I add a lightweight epoxy filler to level out the surface and to fill the large gaps between the strips. Here I use a metal spatula. I use this instead of the ordinary rubber spongy as a test to evaluate which works best. You will see what I prefer in the end of the video. When I have covered all, I will need to sand it down to see if I need to add more or if I'm done. Now I will try an orbital sander to see if I get better access. It gives me better access in the slightly inward bends. Maybe a soft sole would work slightly better. I temporarily revert back to the belt sander for faster sanding. And in the sharp bends, I revert back to hand sanding. Still a lot of hard work, whichever direction you view it from. And when I get tired, I try another tool. A finger belt sander. The good thing with this is that it has great access and works on bendy surfaces. Although one has to be very careful with the operation. It digs into the wood very fast on a small surface. Thus it can't be used to reach the final smooth result. I still have to finish with hand sanding. Although as I have less to sand, it goes much quicker. And I can soon move inside for a second fairing. Also with the aft panel. In the same way I did strengthen the other hull. I will add these extra strips to better cope with the forces from the front stays. In the same way I put in a plywood sheet in the very front to have a stronger attachment point for the stays. I add thickened epoxy to the surfaces. This will cure into a very strong glue that will make the front very rigid and strong. To make good contact, I staple the parts in place. I use plastic scraps to make it easier to remove the staples later on, and use up the rest of the batch as a filler. The next day I can remove the staples. And move outside to sand this part. I want to reduce the amount of filler needed. Thus I level out the sharp edges with different tools and some workout until I can move in for the next fairing. It takes time to get smooth. I add filler around the extra strips and in the front where I have not been before. Having tried the metal spatula, I revert back to the rubber sponge, and the control of the application is improved. Still I have some sanding to do, and in the front I need to use a rasp for access. Moving in for the last fairing. Now I will only have small voids to fill, and I use my favorite application method, a rubber sponge. The lightweight epoxy filler is also very nice to work with, at least for the first 15 minutes, before I can notice any tendencies to cure. The next day, instead of going to the gym, I go over the mildly uneven surface with a sanding sponge. There are still some small unevenness that can be improved. At last I can put down the sponge. The inside is ready for lamination. So I head into the garage. In the next episode I will continue with the preparations.